In this episode, you'll discover my journey to a perfect stroke and why I'm not done just yet.
Feel the grip of the oar handle, smooth yet firm in your hands. Taste the salt of your own sweat and the occasional splash of water. It's all part of the journey. Welcome to another episode of Faster Masters Rowing Radio. Each week, our host, Masters rowing coach Rebecca Caro, dives deep into the world of Masters rowing. Whether you're on the water or in the gym, join us to become a faster master. Let's go rowing.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Faster Masters Rowing. I decided this week to take a slightly more personal slant on a topic which comes up from time to time, but which is one of those perennials that you kind of just can't answer. And it's a journey towards a perfect stroke. I'm not done yet. There is no stroke probably that I have ever taken in my entire life that's perfect. And yet, why do I keep going, keep trying to achieve this? And I can't offer answers, but maybe I can give you some insights from my own experience of rowing. It all began when I was recruited as a student. A man called Mark Jacobs, who's still out there, Mark, said, "You're tall, you should try rowing." And so I did. And we started our first strokes on a bank tub, progressing then to a tub pair and then a clinker 8. Rowing suited my physiology. I'm an endurance-y sort of person. At school, I would throw the shot put. I would run 1,500 meters. I wasn't good at sprint. I wasn't particularly good at jumping. I'm not massively athletic. Ball skills are fair to not brilliant. And so finally getting in a sport where for the first time I could really see why people liked sport, I stuck it out. I enjoyed some of the challenges. I remember trying to learn the colours of all the other rowing clubs on the river and to recognise them. By my second year at rowing, I was selected into a team for my university, and it was identified in one of the very first videos I'd ever seen of myself rowing that I was lunging at the catch. And I will tell you now that I am still doing that. I never, ever got out of that habit. And I spend a lot of time reverting and then correcting myself and reverting and correcting myself. Moving through my sweep career, I began to learn the importance of drills. Drills as a means of separating the different parts of the stroke so that you can improve your ability to do each bit, and drills that exaggerated part of the movements. So I learned how to move different parts of my body separately, not simultaneously. So a good example would be arriving at the catch and not lifting my hands at the same time that my seat arrives. So placing the blade before my seat arrives. So that requires to separate the hand movement from the rolling of the slide. I then decided I really did need to learn how to single scull. And I had been out in a clinker single a few times as a student. And by this time I was at Marlow Rowing Club and I took a learn to row single out. And I vividly remember the last sort of kilometre or so back to the boathouse where I suddenly got it. I was able to glide. The boat just went right over the top of the waves and the wash that were happening on the water surface. And it just seemed to click. And I thought to myself, that's why people do it. It feels like this and they can make it work. I will say it took me a ridiculously long time to ever get back to that feeling. I don't know what I did that made it click. I was on my own. I didn't have a coach. And I do not know what I did to get it back, except that it was clear I jumped a few steps ahead and I needed to go back and fill in the gaps in my learning so that I could make consistent movements. During that time, I remember going for an early morning outing in the dark with a light on the boat and realizing that this was a total and utter disaster in a single scull until I had learned how to scull in a straight line from one stroke to the next. I just kept hitting the bank or finding myself in the middle of the river. So that was a useful thing to clock up. And I did eventually get a bit better when I joined a sculling club and I had to scull all the time. And that taught me how to recruit more muscles, how the individual parts of my bodily musculature contribute to the rowing stroke, particularly my glutes. I don't think I had ever really activated my glutes in service of the power phase until I got in a single scull. And I will say that I had been reasonably successful as a sweep rower. And so, it shows what a big gap there was there in my learning that I just somehow failed to acquire. The mental endeavor was another thing that single sculling taught me, how to be reliant on myself, how to recognize that anything going wrong in the boat was 100% caused by me, and the resolution was 100% enabled by me. So there was a sort of positive side to those two coins. But I began to take on additional challenges. So steering a boat, learning to sweep on both sides. I wanted to be a person who a coach could look at and say, I could put them into any seat in my boat because they have the skills. Sculling also taught me boat feel, how to notice the way the boat was moving underneath me, how it was responding to the water conditions, to the winds, to the waves, what was happening around me. We were on a tidal river, so you had to row against the tide and with the tide. So it's a bit like headwind rowing versus tailwind rowing. And feeling the boat respond to those external stimuli and learning to make really small adjustments to how I was sculling in order to take advantage or to dissipate negative effects caused by those externalities. Throughout all of this, it was a continuous learning journey of, steps forward and then steps backward, like my lunging at the catch. It would come back. I remember sculling one day and just looking down at my handles at the finish and going, why are you leading with your right hand up the recovery? How did you get into that bad habit? And I have no idea how I did, but having found that I was doing it, I was able to pay attention to it and then start to fix it and resolve that. And I also came to understand the difference between your rowing style and your rowing technique. On our river, we got quite a long view upstream and downstream from the balcony of the boathouse. And I realized that from quite a long way away, you could recognize who was in a single scull because you knew how they rowed, you knew their rowing style. And that was quite a revelation to me, that there were many different ways and styles of rowing, but still using fundamentally the same technique and recognizing the difference between these two. Individual choices, of course, are possible when you're rowing in a single. And now I'm somewhat older and into masters rowing. Aging adds another dimension to the sport. For me, as my body changes, as my abilities shift, I'm making different adaptations and changes. I think you all know I've been in the weights room now for a couple of years, and my strength is really good. I haven't had lower back pain since I've been doing lifting and strength training. So that's a serious positive, because that was something that niggled and came and went a bit throughout my career. But I also now have different challenges of a new club, new joiners. How can we learn to blend crews together with people who've learned from different traditions, different methods? Maybe they were new to the sport and they've come up through the ranks. One of the fun things for me, I enjoy teaching. I wouldn't be doing this business if I didn't enjoy teaching. And so being a coach and being an athlete simultaneously means that the pleasure of making a crew fire by everybody making small changes in order to together make the boat go better has been a really fun element of my own rowing and sculling over recent years. And so back to the topic in hand, the journey to a perfect stroke. My perfect stroke today in this crew, which might be a double scull, will be different from my perfect stroke goals tomorrow when I'm rowing in an 8. And so the journey is never over. The challenges continue. Old ones resurface, new ones arise. And enjoying the process of the journey rather than seeking a singular destination. For me, that's why I am loving being a masters rower, still working on trying to find a perfect stroke. And I hope that you find this as entertaining and the endeavour as satisfying as I do. We're on the journey together. Till next time.
We are part of the RowingChat podcast network. Please tell your fellow rowers about the show. If you've learned just one helpful thing from today's episode, please consider supporting the show for as little as $1 per month by visiting fastermastersrowing.com/podcast.